Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 179 of Rush Roundtables. We are on the Roll the Bones album from 1991 and on track number 2, the incredible Bravado. I'm super excited to talk about this song. It's one of my favorites on the album and one of my favorite Rush songs in general. We have an awesome panel here. I couldn't think of a possible better panel for me to be my first host for. We got Michael Ostrich, who may just have the largest collection of CDs and DVDs and posters I've ever seen. That's awesome. Got Paul Simon, who's probably the most well-studied Rush fan I've ever met. He's going to have some great insight to say for sure. We got Alex Kelly. He will blow your mind with all his music theory knowledge. So I'm sure he'll have some things to say regarding the music of this song. And we also got the very legendary Stick Hits, Jesse Logan, for his Roundtable debut. So welcome, everybody.
It's my ride along.
So let's just get right into it. All right. So this song starts off with some opening instrumentation. It's pretty slow, soft. It's got a repeating guitar arpeggio riff, a very simple eighth note bass line, and just good old drumming on the hi-hat and snare and kick. Pretty repetitive, but I think it sets a fantastic tone for this song, which definitely is it's got a different speed compared to the rest of the album. But I love it. And you guys want to say something about it?
Well, the arpeggio, yeah, like you say, it goes throughout a good portion of the song. It's the intro, it's the verse figure. The band, they themselves, as Getty said in a CD launch broadcast, that he felt that was a pretty emotional song for him, just because of the idea that it sort of had a different vibe than a lot of the rest of the album.
And they've actually gone off to say that it's probably one of their favorite songs as a band that they've ever written. So
Yeah, I can see that. It shows.
Yeah, you can tell in the live videos for sure.
And they played it live more than some pretty classic songs. They played it live more often than Fly By Night. They played it live more often than Lakeside Park, more than Mission. So,
Wow.
It was a very well played song for sure. We could talk more about our favorite live versions and everything towards the end. Let's get into some of the lyrics, that Neil was just so good at. So the first stanza of this song: if we burn our wings, flying too close to the sun, if the moment of glory is over before it's begun, if the dream is won, though everything is lost, we will pay the price, but we will not count the cost. We will pay the price, but we will not count the cost. So to introduce this part, I actually like to mention a quote that Neil mentioned in the Roll the Bones tour book. Thank you, Paul, for finding it. So these are Neil's words. A line from John Barth's The Tidewater Tales, which echoed around inside me for a long time after I read that book. To me, it just means go for it. There are no failures of talent, only failures of character. I think that's often true too. Sure, there are a lot of talented people who don't achieve artistic or worldly success, but I think there's usually a reason, a failure inside them. The important thing is if you fall once, or if your luck is bad this time, the dream is still there. A dream is only over if you give it up or if it comes true. That is called irony. We have to remember the Oracle's words from Nike, the Greek gods of victory and lumpy athletic shoes. Just do it. No excuses. I really love what he said there. It really it holds true because I think we can all relate to that. All of us have dreams. All of us have things we want to accomplish, but a lot of times it's either unattainable or it takes a while to happen. In fact, in this first stanza, he even says, if the dream is won, you may have gotten what you wanted, though everything is lost. So you may have sacrificed yourself in the process. So I think something else that he's kind of getting at here is that as much as you should chase your dreams, I don't think you should necessarily try to sacrifice whether it's you, your mental health, your physical health, things around you, just to attain that dream, because it's very possible that it's not really going to benefit you in the long run. Hence, we will pay the price, but we will not count the cost. You're not going to realize what you have lost until a lot later. So I think that's personally really, really deep. And I just love that first opening set of lyrics.
you know
Do you have anything to say?
it also it reminds you of, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. The mention of burning your wings too close to the sun takes you back to Icarus. So even then, there's always a bit of literature piped in when you least expect it. I think what you said is pretty spot on. I mean, you may have won something, but at what cost was it? And sometimes the journey is not to arrive, to paraphrase another song of theirs. And sometimes doing it and getting what you want, I use an expression for work is you could be right or you could be dead right. Just because you are right at something doesn't mean it's worth being absolutely right no matter what happens, because sometimes that's worth it. You don't get everything you need by doing it that way. So you need to pick and choose and fight your battles. So if you win it, okay, you may have won it, but what in reality did that cost you? And that phrase alone is enormous.
So if I were, I'll go for Paul here. Oh, all right. I was just going to say, if I could be a contrarian for a moment, the idea there is some would also argue the flip side, and I'm going to kind of reference Michael's Wardrobe, because a recent issue of Prague Magazine that was talking about the 50th anniversary of Lark's Tongues and Aspic, Bill Bruford had a quote that really just came down to the fact that incarnation of King Crimson was just willing to jump off the cliff, as he said. So at that point, that could be said to say that, you have this band, we're going to just basically do what we want to do. 2112, sorry, Ryan. And the idea there is you're basically going for it. You're going all in and just putting it out there. You are going to pay the price. That aspect of your life, you might succeed, and in these cases, Rush did, King Crimson did with that project. And you're going to pay that price because it's that aspect of an easy life is over there. It's like magic, last album. But the idea there is that that aspect of an easy life is over there. You've paid that price of, well, this is my life now. I'm on this track, and you're not necessarily counting that cost so much, or I should say, in counting the cost, the idea is, well, I'm remaining focused. And I feel like that's the thing, obviously, that Neil would have, talking about time stands still. He's saying, well, I might acknowledge this aspect of life and what's come and gone, but I'm not going to live in the past. I'm going to move forward. And I also, if I want to keep cutting Paul off and keep going for Hold Your Fire, I'll shut up after this. I feel like this is a good sequel to We Each Pay a Fabulous Price for Our Visions of Paradise.
Yes.
It's skip an album, but all right, wait, I promise to shut up. I'm going to mute.
Thank you, Alex.
No, that was a good comparison.
Agreeing completely with Alex's take on it. And again, Neil wrote so that there could be many interpretations, but given his writing style, his thought process, and all three of them really, we're going to do this. Given the album's theme of endless possibilities and chance, if you don't take a chance, you're not going to get anywhere. In other words, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So, and the John Barth line specifically that Neil borrowed with permission was, we will pay the price, but we will not count the cost. So if that's what was resonating in his head as he's writing this, it's a case of, if I don't try, nothing's going to happen. So cause effect, I need to do something. If it succeeds, great. If it fails, I tried, this dream is not over. I can try again, try something different, what have you, but keep going. That's when he said the dream isn't over until you either fail and quit. It's not over when you fail. When you quit, then the dream's over, or when you succeed and you get your dream. Until then, the dream is not lost, which comes up later.
It's almost like you're running a marathon.
Yes, from first to last.
That reminds
never
me
pass.
Maybe that's a trilogy.
That reminds me
Unnamed.
Could be.
Marillion line. Failure isn't about getting down. Failure is about staying down. It's almost, it almost feels like we talked about Available Light a few weeks ago. It almost feels like a cousin of Available Light, because paying the price, counting the cost. And yes, you can view it multiple ways. But viewing it in a positive, I'm going to pay the price. I'm going to see what's out there, and I don't know what that cost is, and it might be worth it. And, taking that shot, Paul, to your point, I may succeed, I may fail, but I'm never going to know until I try.
Excellent
Yeah,
discussion all around. You have something to say, Jesse?
I was just gonna say, because I mean, it was probably a decade or so until I even looked up the lyrics and started looking into the meaning over the last few days. And what I took away from the song, I think originally was, shit's gonna happen in life, and it's better just to, move forward and not to calculate that in your head and pour over it, because it's there's just no way around it, and there's no point focusing on it. So that's what I always had in the back of my mind listening to the song. A little different, but I don't know. I guess there's a few different interpretations.
Yeah, that's kind of a little contrary to what I was saying in the beginning, but both kind of work. We will not count the cost could either mean there's a price and you don't want to count what happened, or you're not even aware of it until later in life. So there are kind of two different interpretations there. I'm not really sure which one Neil was thinking of, but it was easily
Either could work.
He definitely knew how to make songs personal. Everyone, it rings true, a little truer or less true to everyone, or just has a different meaning to everyone, which is so it's just so profound. He was so good at that. All right, we should probably move forward to the guitar solo now. I personally love this guitar solo. Fun fact, it was actually a one-take solo. So Alex just decided to plug in his guitar and okay, I'm just gonna see what I can do here. And it's just flawless. I don't even have words to describe how amazing this is. It's one of my favorites of their entire catalog, because he doesn't have to let it rip so high on the fretboard or shred it at the 32nd, 64th notes. He just lets the melody do the work. He lets his guitar soar. He lets that PRS do its thing, and he lets his restraint do its thing. And it really captures the sort of bittersweet feeling of this song. I love it. I really love it.
All right, back to the contrarian. Sorry. Telecaster direct into a Gallien-Kruger 2000 CPO preamp, which I wish I had never sold my GK gear. But that was like 30 years ago, and that was stupid. So, but this and Ghost of a Chance are Lifeson's favorite ones on the album, and that's the thing I always think about, that Alex Lifeson has always been a really good example of someone who would have a melodic solo. Because it's almost kind of I don't know. In some ways, it's almost just from reading so much growing up or learning how to play guitar. People talking about the solo should take the song somewhere. Well, he always did, and he most certainly did on this song. So and it's interesting too to me that because of the idea of having that preamp going direct. Why did I sell that? Anyway, the idea of having a preamp going direct. I feel like that was like foreshadowing where he was going to go with the Victor album, because a lot of the Victor album he recorded direct using Palmer preamp, speaker simulator type stuff, which is what got Geddy using more of the Tech 21 Sans amp gear, which is what caused Geddy to say, I don't really need this gear on stage, chicken rotisserie, etc., etc. So this solo is why Geddy wound up with all sorts of home appliances on stage behind him.
That's a funny take. Yeah, I apologize there. I was thinking of the Roll the Bones tour gear where Alex was using his PRS CE24.
Yep.
But yes, I do remember now that he used a Telly in the studio, and on the Vapor Trails and R30 tours he played on the Telly live, and then Les Paul on Clockwork Angels, of course.
That's why you got me here.
I also sorry, what's that, Paul?
I said among other reasons.
Another thing I love about this guitar solo is the synth backing track. It's kind of like the timbre of that choir. It's not a real choir, but it to me, it definitely it resonates better to me that way. Because as for those who don't know, I'm a huge synth junkie, and I love when like there are just some little chords in the background to just really full up the sound of the whole song. And that's something I miss on the first few Rush albums and the last few. So this middle era to me was sort of my golden, because just everything just sounds so larger than life, and that sound kind of comes back in the last chorus and in the end with those little synth chimes in there. Getty did say during the recording of Presto, he wanted to move away from the synths, but he couldn't resist using them for color. So even though Roll the Bones is a lot less synthy than the mid 80s, late 80s albums, I love that mindset of just using it a little bit for color. I think it makes a ginormous difference to me personally.
Glad they waited one album to do that song, because if it was a few years earlier, it might have been like guitar and synth 50% each, or maybe even synth even more. So that solo definitely needed to stand out.
Yeah, just killer little instrumental section. And then we have our next verse, or bridge, I guess. And if the music stops, there's only the sound of the rain. All the hope and glory, all the sacrifice in vain. And if love remains, though everything is lost, we will pay the price, we will not count the cost. We will pay the price, but we will not count the cost. And if love remains, though everything is lost, we will pay the price, but we will not count the cost. One more time through, and then finishing off with a very powerful, and if the love remains, and then the ending instrumental. So I guess we can lump this whole part together, just like the ending of the post guitar solo part of the song. So what would anybody like to say something about that to start off?
I'll jump in real quick. With the repetition, one thing about this album that really stands out for me is we talked about during Presto's roundtables, Neil was taking writing lessons. He'd always been a voracious reader, but his writing very specifically, starting with Presto, and nothing against the earlier albums, anybody, before the comment section blows up, but you can tell starting with Presto that his technique just gets a little bit more on touch. And what I decided to do was I wanted to look at Roll the Bones as a whole, and I noticed that pretty much every song, maybe one or two discounted, but I think all of them have some form of either wordplay or poetic meter or something to them. But Bravado specifically jumped out at me. The more I started digging into forms of poetry and things like that, it always read like a poem when I read the lyrics. So I decided to look up some terms, refresh, dust off the cobwebs, that part of literature that I used to know a long time ago. And what I found was, for starters, anaphoric writing, or anaphora, is repetition of a word or a phrase, or referring back to a preceding word or a phrase. Now, what did Donna Halper teach us? When Neil's trying to make a point, he repeats it over and over until we get it, like any good teacher. So I like the fact that this is almost complete. There's not that many lines in the song itself. And the ones that are there, especially towards the end, he is repeating it. But digging a little deeper, I found a couple things like the alliteration is a term where it uses repeating the same letter in a word or a phrase. Pay the price, the P's. Count the cost, C's. Now, granted, Neil borrowed that, but I think he took the ball and he ran with it for the rest of the song, because you could do it with vowels. It's called assonance, repeating vowel sounds. The opening line: if we burn our wings, you can hear that ooh sound in 3 different spots. So it's subtle, but what's not subtle in this song, the way Getty sings it specifically, and I love it, is there's pauses that are called, I'm not going to get this right, sashira, or sashure for plural. But if you have a pause in the start of a line, in the middle of a line, or at the end of the line, that's the initial, the medial, and the terminal. And listen to the way Getty sings it. If the dream is one, there's a pause there, there's a break, like to be or not to be. That after the first B is the sashira. So listen to, and I'm not going to go through them all, but listen to every line of this song, and you are going to hear those pauses. And I love the way it's done. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear it the rest of your life now. And every time they did it live, he made sure he stuck to that. So now, Tal, going back to when you introed the song and you were talking about how it's melodic, it's repetitive on purpose. I think that's why. I think the song is structured that way. I think they put a lot of energy into writing it this way on purpose. And then obviously these deep, meaningful lyrics, but you can hear the wordplay. There's other things in here. I mean, wordplay with Neil goes as far back. I mean, you can go all the way back, but think Red Lenses. I think Anagram. As far as any song on this album, Roll the Bones, wordplay, he threw a rap in there. And he wanted to give it a try. The whole song was written. I don't want to take away from their roundtable, but then the rap was introduced. Neurotica is nothing but wordplay. So I really think that the writing in here, trying to think, and rhymes. Yeah, most songs rhyme, but English is a hard language to rhyme. It's not like, Italian or Spanish, where if you've got a masculine or feminine word that ends a line, you have an automatic ah or an o. But English, we're a pain. So sun, begun, cost, lost. You look through. Yes, you're going to find a lot of rhymes, but there's just a certain meter to this whole song, and especially those pauses. Listen for them; they're there. So,
Well said.
Very astute observations there. Does have a very parallel structure in terms of the way Getty enunciates everything. And I mentioned this way back in the Open Secrets Roundtable. He seems to once again avoid enunciating a word on beat 1 in this song, with the exception of, at least the one like it's in my head right now. And if the music stops right there. I think
sure,
that's
see what I'm saying? Exactly. Yeah. The silence makes a punch, but anyway.
So I love that. Definitely. That's a great take you have there. I also want to do, as a drummer, I also want to talk a little bit about Neil's very unique drumming in this song. I won't ramble on for too long, and if any of you guys want to add something, you can. So this song is actually significant because it is the first in their discography where that utilizes Neil's changed up drum set. So to give you a little bit of background, after the Presto tour, Neil was watching his tech at the time, Larry Allen, putting his drums together, and Neil was watching and he was thinking, wow, I've been using the same basic setup for so long now, and I need a change. So that is when he and his tech started to move things around. Every single tom was moved one lower than its original spot, which is why everything sounds a little more tightly wounded, a little more highly pitched, because now when he's hitting a 10-inch tom, when he used to hit a 10-inch tom, it's now an 8-inch because the 8-inch is in the spot that the 10-inch tom used to be in. So everything just sounds a little bit higher frequency. And now he has a floor tom right under his left elbow, which he really utilizes to his advantage in the song with that very special beat there. And then in the very end, he does some masterful limb independence where he ends on the ride, and then 2, 3, 4, 2, yeah, and then snare on 2, and then the left hand on the hi-hat and all the e's and uhs, and yeah, it probably sounds like gibberish to a non-drummer, but I'm sure Jesse understands. It is a killer beat. It's so much fun to play, and I think it's so fitting for the climax of the song because Neil has done this a lot, playing a beat that you may have never heard before in a song, yet it just sounds so right. Does not sound out of place. Some drummers just do too much, and even with a unique beat, it's like you want them to sort of dial it down a little bit, and that is not the case in this song. It could have easily had like a normal 4 on the floor, or just a hi-hat and snare beat, but he chose that really cool limb independence beat, and I just don't think it could have fit better anywhere else than the climax of this song. And then after Getty's last "And If the Love Remains," there's almost like a little bit of a crescendo, and then you have the instrumental that to close out the song, and then live they would do a jam, which is obviously very cool. The studio version fades out, but I think both have their place. Any thoughts about the ending?
So I know Neil's talked about this drum part, the whole drum section is based on his travels in Nigeria. And I know he's mentioned that a few times, and how as a band they all stripped back on this song because, to your point, it's very easy to fill here, but they very much step back and let, even at the end, to let Alex's guitar just be by itself for a bit with the strings behind it. So this is very much a case of less is more. letting the song breathe. Whereas perhaps
Absolutely.
10, 15 years ago, they wouldn't know how to do that. It was let's fill as much as we can. Or now it's let the song will dictate to you what it needs. In terms of the outro, it's funny because there's two different, there's, there's a studio version where it just kind of fades out. And then what they would do live, which would have that, jam section where Alex would just solo. And I can remember, at least here in Philadelphia, I think it was the Snakes and Arrows tour, where during that song there was almost like a catastrophic thunderstorm that happened during that song. And while they were playing behind us, just the skies opened up, and when it was over, the thunderstorm ended. It was just one of those things that I'll always remember.
Wow.
There's something about that song that hits me, I guess, far more than Dreamline does, just because it's more emotional for me. It's more, it just, maybe the sparseness almost grabs you in and brings you closer. At least for me, it does. I've always found a little bit of a kinship with that song. So for me, the outro and watching how they've done improv, for 2-3 minutes, a la what they would do with Closer to the Heart in the 80s. Something really nice how they would take, give themselves their own kind of ballpark to play with every now and then. So I very much like that.
Right. You mentioned Snakes and Arrows. That can't be right because they didn't play Bravado on that tour. So
Whatever tour,
R30 maybe,
maybe R30.
it's either R30 or it was Time Machine.
and Clockwork Angels.
You say you're from Philadelphia. Did you see them at the in Camden, New Jersey? R30. Yeah. We gotta check the weather that day back in 2004. See if there was a thunderstorm.
There's a weird bootleg of it where it's like some sort of capture from the screen, but it's almost like somebody hacked into the screen with like soundboard audio
Where's that from?
from the Camden show.
Oh yes, the it was the screen footage, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know if it was filmed. It was really good because it really looked like it somehow was ripped like digitally. It's a really weird one.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've seen
But
that.
it's a good show.
I think Snow Dog uploaded those. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think Bravado was included, but there was some. There's I think Earthshine, Spirit of Radio. Find those on YouTube. Either Snow Dog or Roll the Femurs upload those. That's cool.
You got me thinking. You got me looking at the book. That as far as the lyrics went, his vocal melody, if we burn our wings, if the moment of glory, if the dream, he's beginning all of those lines on the 2, beat 2. The first we will pay the price begins on the and of 4, and then all of those, every we will pay the price after that moves to the and of 1. Like you were saying, he's not singing on the 1, but I just think it's interesting that in the beginning, if we're talking about pausing and the rhythm of the melody, he's beginning on the 2. And then as the song gets into the chorus, he moves it forward to the and of 1, obviously even more syncopated, but that much closer to the beginning of the beat. I did not think of that until Tal said that like 10 minutes ago. So it's sort of like, hey, good thing I got my book handy, which has the vocals in it.
I think that's not very unique to this song.
No, it isn't.
And a lot of Rush songs, for some reason, Getty avoids singing on beat 1. Definitely try that.
A lot of rock songs do that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of rock songs that are based as pickups and whatnot. But yeah, I just think I'm sure it's very intentional with this song that they said, well, we're going to begin in this manner. We're going to begin probably more laid back on the 2. And then the chorus, with that kind of concept of "we will pay the price," gets a little more forward, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Listen for those middle and end ones though, because he slightly exaggerates them live too, which I love because it's especially the farther away from the album they get towards Clockwork Angels, it's very, very noticeable.
Yes, there are 2. Yeah, that part's double tracked. There's a "we will pay the price" and a "we will pay the price." And
Peter Brady, ladies and gentlemen.
And Ged strategically chose to always do the higher one, like the one that starts on the G, even though even though his voice was aging, there must have been a reason that he decided to sing that one. Maybe it sounded more heartfelt for him to really push forward on those vocals.
Well,
And
he knew Michael Scott would do it, so.
I didn't realize that. That's is there any other instances where he does that you know of?
He used to sing the higher part of the low.
Yeah.
Time Stands Still Alive. I'm not looking back, but I want to look around me now. But live, they never sampled the low one. It was just Geddy's high vocals alone.
Oh yeah. Heard about that.
All right, we are just almost out of time. So before we wrap up, does anyone have any final comments about the song? Favorite live version? Any personal memories?
Personal memory. I was in JCPenney in the summer of 1992, just looking for, whatever clothing. This song came on. And it was just so weird and out of place because you just sort of stop and like, wait, what? Because it's not, but at that point in the early 90s, it seems like some radio stations and obviously some Muzak were looking to get a little more current. But it's just something that always was just like this oddly haunting thing that I heard Bravado in JCPenney. That, like 11 months after the album was out. It wasn't even like, oh, we got this old song. No, it's like, we want to be current. We're going to play this song. And it's sort of, I'll shop to that. So.
It's pretty easygoing. It's not Caressive Steel or anything.
I'll take it.
That's an awesome memory. Anybody else?
I just love how much it stood out from the other heavy hitters that came out in that same like 3 or 4 month period. Well, what do we have? Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, the Black Album, Nevermind. It just was so on its own. I'm not saying the other ones aren't amazing as well, or I'm not saying anything like that. What I'm saying is Roll the Bones does not sound like anything else that was out at that time. Period. That's one of the reasons I love this one so much in Rush's discography is nothing sounds exactly like it. I mean, yeah, they evolve album to album, but again, I'm stuck on the wordplay and the alliteration, but again, sticking with the overall theme of endless possibilities and chance, I still stand on this one being, I'd call it almost the heart of the album when it comes to that idea.
Good way to say it.
So.
I agree with that. All right, everyone. Well, that takes us to the end. So thank you guys. You were a wonderful panel. It was a pleasure to speak with you all. I hope you guys watching out there enjoyed it as well. Let us know what you think of this song, Bravado. And let us know if you ever saw this live, have any personal memories. We would love to hear. We'd love to hear all of your fans' opinions. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe. Buy Rush Fans merch. You guys know the deal. And we'll see you around. Thank you so much, everybody.